Hey, Christoph here, and thanks so much for checking out this video. Of course, in this video, we're going to be taking a look at the future of our world. This is going to be a series of tarot card readings that I'm going to be doing for a while here, where we're going to be taking a look at the future of our world, and we're going to see what kind of energy here comes through the tarot cards. Of course, I'm going to be doing this as a 10 card reading, and what we're going to do, we're going to take a look at the energy of our world, and maybe perhaps the tarot cards can give us insight of what's going to be happening here in the future of our world. Let's go ahead and check this out. I'm going to be pulling the 10 cards for this reading. Of course, the way that this reading is going to work, I'm going to flip each card over one at a time. With each card I flip over, I'm going to give you a brief description of each individual card, and once, of course, all 10 cards have been flipped over, we'll see what kind of energy comes through here, and we'll see what the cards have to say about the future of our world and what's going to be happening in it. Of course, if you want your own tarot card reading, you can go right to this address, fiverr.com/rchristoph. That's where you can get a tarot card directly from me. Let's take a look and see. Of course, once again, the question and what we're looking at here in these cards is the future of our world and what's going to be happening in our world here in the near future. Of course, let's find out right now. We're going to start by flipping over the first card. The first card that we have here for this reading is Temperance. Now, Temperance is a really interesting card because it talks about balance, or kind of restoring balance. Of course, the world isn't usually balanced. The world is usually out of balance at any given time, but it seems like there's kind of a balance that's kind of being, I guess, figured out. So I guess not the order. Yeah, it's kind of like the order of the world. So this essentially represents a time of kind of figuring out how to kind of rebalance the world, perhaps. Of course, let's take a look at the next card that we have here. The next card that we have here is the Ace of Swords. The Ace of Swords represents a double-edged sword here, a sword that is sharp on both sides of the blade here. With one side of the blade, you can use the sword to protect yourself. With the other side of the blade, you can use the sword to strike down those that stand in your way. So this doesn't talk about a time of battle in the near future here of our world, but this essentially talks about kind of protecting, some people protecting themselves, some people kind of striking out to kind of get what they want within the world. Now, the interesting part is that this whole reading started out with Temperance, which represents restoring balance, but it almost seems like in order to restore balance, yeah, there's maybe perhaps some, protecting, some fighting. Let's take a look at the next card that we have here. The next card that we have here is the Justice card. The Justice card here essentially represents, well, things working out in a just and fair manner. It's karma in action, okay? And that's what this card here represents. So if you're putting good energy into something, you're going to get kind of good energy back. If you're putting bad energy into something, or if you're doing something that upsets a lot of people, things may not work out in your favor. And I've put that card slightly higher because it's an interesting card. We're going to come back to it. Of course, once all the cards are flipped over, we'll have a clearer view of what kind of the near future of our world is going to be looking like. Let's take a look at the next card that we have here, and we have the Fool. So it's a time of making kind of mistakes. Essentially what's happening here, kind of jumping into things without fully knowing the consequences of kind of what you're doing in the world. And the Fool card isn't talking about any one specific person in the world. It's actually talking about a lot of things that are going on. Now, the interesting part is, in order to kind of find or restore balance to, any world or any place or any one person, some mistakes need to be made, and learning from those mistakes is something that's kind of very important. Let's take a look at the next card that we have here, and we have the Ace of Pentacles. This is actually a really great card. We have a big pentacle up here at the top. Now, pentacles Traditionally in the tarot cards, they look like gold coins, okay? I'm using special cards here for YouTube that have less detail, but they're still pretty cool. But yeah, it essentially represents opportunity, the big pentacle, which typically looks like a gold coin in these cards. Down here below, we have a hedge, an archway, and a path leading to mountains in the distance. This card essentially represents a long journey filled with kind of opportunities. So even though there's kind of fighting going on, even though, you know, there are people making mistakes on both sides in many places, it's kind of headed towards the direction of prosperity, not just for one place or one country, but overall in the world through this long journey of almost like trial and error. Okay, let's take a look at our next 5 cards. Of course, once we flip over all 10 cards, I'll be able to tell you what everything is saying together though. But the next card that we have here is the High Priestess. Now the High Priestess talks about kind of reflection. It represents getting in touch with your own feelings and emotions. And because we're talking about the world in general, of course, we're talking about the future of our world in this tarot reading. You know, this actually talks about, getting in touch with feelings and emotions on the inside and figuring out how, you know, we feel about kind of other countries, other people throughout the world. And this is something that's going to happen in kind of every country, a redefinition of how each individual individual country feels about different things within our world, and kind of setting forward kind of a new policy, each individual country setting a new policy for what they want in the future. So it's about reflection. And the interesting part is, with all the stuff that's kind of going on in the world right now, a lot of people are thinking more about the future and what they want, and if they could change something, how they could change it. So yes, a time of change, hopefully positive change from what we were seeing in the Justice card. The next card that we have here, oh boy, we got the Eight of Swords. The Eight of Swords here represents the feeling of being trapped, and essentially what comes through this card is that, you know, things are going to get worse. We might feel things might get tighter, more restrictive before things kind of loosen up and fall through. But this is a part of any kind of transitional process, right? This is a process of kind of, you know, redefining things. There's going to be things that we're used to having that we may not have anymore. There may be things that become more expensive or cheaper, but yeah, it represents kind of uncomfortable changes, whether they're permanent or temporary. Okay, the next card that we have here for this one is the Hierophant. The Hierophant actually represents following tradition. So this card doesn't so much represent tradition continuing the way it's been throughout the world, but it represents kind of a redefinition of tradition to kind of a new balance. And, you know, that's kind of what this reading is all about here. You know, the near future of our world right now, Temperance here is representing of kind of a restructuring and balance. And the Hierophant card, which represents kind of following tradition, represents kind of a new tradition being set. Now, some countries will become closer with other countries will kind of separate with other countries, but it's about kind of, I don't know, it's almost like revisiting old connections to figure out, you know, what the new future is going to be in our world. The next card that we have here, yeah, oh boy, we got the Tower. The Tower essentially represents disaster more than anything else. And what happens in this card here is lightning hits the tower burns down from the ground. People are jumping out of the windows for safety. So not that the world is going to burn down. Like, I don't think so. Like, we're heading towards balance. Remember that. Like, everything that's going on right now in the world is just a transitional, uncomfortable kind of period in the world in order to kind of find balance. But, you know, what I was saying before, in order to find kind of the new way forward, okay, in order to find kind of that, you know, the new tradition, there's some things that are going to be, you know, burning down. Now, this doesn't represent actual things burning down, okay? Although, you know, who knows what the what the environment is going to do, right? Who knows what the earth is going to do. Now, what's essentially happening here in our Tower card here, the Tower card here, essentially represents, things changing. It represents, there's a lot of things that, depending on where you're living in the world, what country that you're in the world, there's things that you've kind of learned to accept about the world. There's things that are going to be destroyed. Okay. There are things that are going to be destroyed to a level where they cannot recover. So there will be things, depending on where you are in the world, there will be things that you'll need to get used to not having anymore. There's changes that will end up being kind of permanent. And it's almost like, a part of like the kind of restructuring all over the world. It isn't just one place I'm talking about here. I'm talking about all over the world. It's kind of like, pushing that first domino and all the dominoes fall down. Okay. There's going to be some things that are going to happen that are really not good. Okay. And they may cause kind of permanent changes to, the way we view the world and what we're accustomed to having. Now, the interesting part about having and not having something, having something is like a belonging, and this is kind of what I'm talking about, like, having a certain expectation in your lifestyle. So there's going to be some of those things that are going to go away. Okay. And maybe never come back, but there's going to be kind of a redefinition of what, your individual lifestyle is, depending on where you're living in the world. Now, there's some places in the world that are going to end up like prospering in an extreme way because of, a lot of the things going on in the world right now. And when I talk about the world, I'm talking about the people in the world. Okay. I'm talking about countries in the world. I'm not actually talking about the earth in general, but there are big changes along the way, and some of these kind of destructive things that are going to be happening to kind of mankind policies, this sort of thing. They're gonna cause improvements in certain places in the world, and maybe some things that you've been used to having in your life, luxuries that you've been used to having in your life. Maybe some of those luxuries are going to disappear and maybe not return. And oh boy, this is not how I want to end this reading. Of course, the last card that we have here for this one, for this reading, is the Devil card. And as far as the future of our world tarot card reading, of course, we're looking in, kind of the near future of our world here in this reading. The Devil card is not what you want to see, okay? But the Devil card doesn't actually represent a real devil. The Devil card doesn't actually represent, at least in my opinion, anything really terrible. It doesn't represent an individual person, okay? The Devil card essentially represents fears and worries, and this is what's probably going to cause the most damage to us in our world more than anything else, like us as the human race moving forward into the future of the world as we know it. Fears and worries are going to be what cause the most trouble than anything else. When we fear we're going to lose something, stuff happens, okay? So fear can actually drive people to make terrible choices and decisions. Fear can actually cause people to panic, riot, all sorts of interesting things. Fear can cause major issues, cultural issues, one country fighting against another country. Now, something that I'm going to say here in this reading, I'm not seeing anything about a major world war, okay? So we're not going to the world war place. That's not what I'm talking about in this reading, but it's like individual people fearing other people, individual people fearing that they're going to be losing something that, be happy that you're alive, okay? Be healthy that you're surviving in this world, whether you're healthy or not, okay? You're here, you're living, the goal here for everybody, regardless of, the turmoil and interesting things that may be happening in our world day in and day out, the purpose of life is survival, is discovery, is experiences, okay? And as long as you're here and as long as you're alive, you can enjoy experiences in your life. You can make discoveries about yourself and in the world, and you can enjoy your time, okay? I don't know if things are going to be getting better in the near future. From what's come through this reading, it seems like there's a lot of mistakes. There's a lot of kind of resetting. I'll call it a karma reset, okay? justice, adjustment within the world, people kind of working towards achieving certain things. And yes, the Fool card does represent kind of jumping into things without fully thinking things through, which represents that people are going to be making mistakes. Individual people are going to be making mistakes. Groups of people are going to be making mistakes. But that's what life is about. We're not here on this earth to have a smooth ride, okay? We're meant to make mistakes. We're meant to, learn from those mistakes in our life so that we can become better as individuals, so that, those individuals and those groups of individuals can become better groups of individuals. Countries can become better countries. That's the ultimate goal, that peaceful, happy kind of balance. But there's always going to be fear and worry. There's always going to be chaos kind of getting in the way of things. And don't be afraid of the chaos. Don't be afraid of mistakes that are being made. Just make the best decisions for yourself in your life to stay happy, to learn, and to grow. Okay. Of course, this reading was my Future of Our World tarot card reading. Of course, we pulled 10 cards for this reading. And in this reading, we took a look at the near future of our world and things that we could very well be facing in the future. We got a lot of information here. Not all of it good, but not all of it bad either, which should give us an idea about how things are kind of shaping in our future. If you have an opinion or something that you would like to discuss about this reading, talking about, your view of the world in the future, feel free to comment down below in this video. I'll read all the comments that you write there. Of course, if you have any future questions that you would like me to answer as far as, the world reading, I'd be happy to do more specific readings targeted on those answers in the future. Or if there's any other type of tarot reading you would like to see me do here on the Third Eye Alliance official YouTube channel, go ahead and ask that of me. Of course, we do our own podcast, the Third Eye Alliance official podcast here on the channel as well too. Feel free to check that out, and thanks so much for watching this video.